Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Ada, your online therapist. Such a pleasure to be back. I hope you are having a wonderful day. So guys, I wanted to talk skip-dee-doo about what's happening, the psychology of what we're experiencing, which is the mass protests happening across the world, from Nigeria to Belarus to Thailand. I mean, it's not even to mention here in America. But I wanted to discuss something very key to revolution, and that is the psychology of a revolution. So, guys, when it comes to a revolution or protest or the demand for change, freedom fighting, the one thing that drives it is the emotion of the idea. Now, there are two things. There's the idea, okay? Say, for in the case of Nigeria, it is end SARS. And then there was the end police brutality. So there's the idea, there is the what is the goal, what is the objective that is being put forward. And then we talk about the emotion. Now, is it a happy emotion or is it an unhappy emotion? Is it anger, frustration? This is what determines the emotion of or behind the revolution, or the emotion of the crowd. Let's talk about the crowd. So when you talk about going into a protest, going into a situation where there are demands to be made, there's the idea and then there's the emotion behind the idea. Without these two, such a protest or revolution usually has no life of itself. What happens, however, is it's important to communicate the idea and let the idea spread faster than the emotion, because if the idea does not become clear, the emotion would go ahead of the idea and cause destruction. Why? If someone just hears that end SARS or we're protesting against SARS, they could just go based on a personal experience. But when they understand that having a vengeful or retaliatory emotion, coming with that retaliatory emotion might end up putting you in a position to be attacked by the police or authorities. But having the emotion in check and simply coming with the idea. The emotions are necessary because emotions are the bond that will be found by the crowd, in the crowd. So you have the idea. It's really important that the idea goes out first and is as simplistic as possible. If you were to talk about the SARS situation, most people would feel, I've never had SARS knock on my door, or I've never had a run-ins with the police. Maybe these people are criminals. When you're able to separate yourself, or if it's too ambiguous of an idea, it's easy for people to separate themselves from the idea. However, when it's simplistic, that do you feel safe with a Nigerian police officer? And if you in your mind say no, then that is the binding idea of a protest. It means it's not whether you've run into SARS or not. If you do not feel safe with the very people who are supposed to protect you, then that calls for a change. Whether or not the government is willing to see this as a problem, you should see it as a problem. I mean, if you were to have a security personnel guarding your house and you feel unsafe because of the person you've hired to protect you, that is a problem. So the idea behind protests or revolutions must be as simplistic so that everyone can connect to it. Now, coming to the emotion, there are two things about the emotions of the crowd in a protest or revolution. There's a positive emotion and there's a negative emotion. The positive emotion is that connection to pain, that connection to hope, that vision, and that desire of what we hope would happen in the future. This is all positive. This is what makes people come out arm in arm, sing solidarity, sing your national anthem, wave flags, wave banners, shout, and sing songs demands and so on. This is the spirit of the group, and that is we are one, and we will stand united, and we will fight the common enemy. Now, the other part is the negative part. In a crowd, you see, as individuals, we are restrained by the consequence of the individual, and that is, if you step out and throw a stone at a shop owner's window, the crowd, everyone around you would definitely find it unacceptable, and possibly you would be in trouble with the authorities, if any nearby, or people will simply hold you responsible and make you pay. However, when it comes to a crowd, these individual consequences gain impunity because everyone is fighting, everyone is angry, and everyone is allowed to express their frustration because we are trying to magnify the frustration of 1 to 1,000. So if all I can do is scream and shout and wave a flag, another person is allowed to break a window, smash a car, and so on. However, the unfortunate thing is this does not help accomplish anything because this is the demon of the protest. And what I mean by that is, in a protest, in a revolution, crowd mentality gives people the impunity to express their evil genius, if you understand what I mean. That means all the individual negative and destructive tendencies that were limited to the consequence of the individual gain impunity in the face of a crowd. Now, what do you do in this situation? What it simply means is you have to understand that just because we're all united and we're all out together for a common fight, we have a common enemy, it doesn't mean we also hold ourselves responsible commonly. What I mean by that is anyone, while as individuals, these dormant negative tendencies that were restrained because, dormant individual negative tendencies that were restrained because of the individual are now let loose because of the crowd. Okay, so what needs to happen is you have to protect yourself, go out in groups of familiar faces, friends. That means if you're going out on a protest, go with someone you know. If possible, go in a group. The group protects itself. You protect the women from being harassed, and you protect each other from molestation or any kind of harassment that may occur. Because remember, you put yourself in a position where you are exposed to the group evil, and that is the dominant negative tendencies of unscrupulous people are roam free in a protest. That means unless the protest organizers have security measures in place, you have to be your own security. Okay, guys? So number one thing to consider in the psychology of a revolution is the ideology. And that means to make it as simple and as create a common ground for everybody. And I'm referring to anyone who intends to organize rallies or sit down or have talks with groups. It's a simple question, a question that everyone has an answer to, a question that everyone shares a common experience. It needs to be where people share common experiences with nothing bougie, nothing fancy, and nothing extreme, and nothing outright horrific, because when it comes to these experiences, the experiences work within a spectrum. However, is it bad? Yes. End of story. So the one thing is the ideology, the second is the emotion, and the emotion are in two parts. That is the positive, the emotion, the desire to move forward, the desire for oneness, the desire to be heard, and so on and so forth. Then there's the negative one, which is the dormant negative individual tendencies. Okay, you have to be cautious. Just because you're in a crowd does not mean you're safe. A crowd allows people's dormant negative tendencies to come to life. A crowd environment gives that tendency impunity. It gives it freedom to roam. What I mean is, you have to be careful and you have to be alert and vigilant. This is a case where we have a lot of people looting, rioting, and destruction of properties and casualties of life, human life. So when it comes to revolution, understand that there's a common ideology and there's also a common emotion. But within that common emotion, there are two sides. The emotion is a two-pronged, two-headed dragon, if I should call it. Two-headed dragon. It's a two-headed monster. One will help you and one might hurt you. So be vigilant, be aware, and be alert, I should say so. And then there's a third thing. The third thing to consider when heading for a protest or starting a revolution is what's the way forward. So just like any conflict resolution, there has to be dialogue, there has to be compromises. When you come at the table, just like strike and unions, what you're asking for and what can be given. There needs to be a common ground that needs to be shared with everyone. What's the way forward? And what's the way forward means name what is the accountability factor. You have to name what is the accountability factor, because without the accountability factor, we've all protested, we've made our demands known, and nothing happens after. So you have to name the accountability factor, and accountability comes down to time. It's measurable. That means within a certain period that is agreed by both parties, so and so measures will be executed, will be implemented, preferably implemented. Okay, and that means accountability. In the case of the NSAS or end police brutality that is happening in Nigeria, it means that a lot of people have said no longer would they stand on the side and watch a policeman brutalize a civilian, no matter the reason. And this is important simply because everyone is innocent until proven otherwise. That means even someone caught in the act needs to, every human being still has a right to their human dignity and their fundamental rights. They still have, it's even said, okay, you've stolen something. Why? Because you're hungry. Do you punish the person for being hungry, or do you punish them for stealing? Whatever the case may be, there's a leniency on the part of the law. So people taking actions into their hands should be to prevent personal vendetta on the individual where there's law and order. Okay? A lot of times, the situation that gives rise to a revolution or a protest is things not going according to law and order. So there needs to be some sort of reform where an individual's rights and fundamental human rights are not infringed upon for the sake of an arrest or whatever reason. And also, it's important to understand the accountability of the people to one another, and that means being safe around where you live, being a person that people can walk with, and that being an isolated individual exposes you to danger. Usually you'd see people run around when there's an earthquake, a building collapses, or an accident on the road, or someone faints, or a child is about to be kidnapped or stealing, you see people rally round because of the sense of community. But the sense of community needs to be more directed. And what that means is for the larger nation, for the larger national problems, there needs to be community, a sense of community. I know there's a talk about patriotism, there's a talk about fascism, nationalism, and so on and so forth. Well, the idea behind patriotism, and in some instant nationalism, means we have one common umbrella, we have one common loyalty, we have a common dream and hope and pride, which is the nation and what the nation stands for. Fascism means I'm willing to do anything, even death, as long as it's for the nation. That means you're willing to kill, steal, rob, and this is where genocides and all the rest of it happens. The genocides, the murders, the massacres happens because of it's in the interest of my nation. Just like the Bible says, man was not made for Sabbath. Sabbath was made for man. So whatever you're doing in the interest of your nation, a human being must always come first. You have, yes, there's a statement of one has to suffer for the well-being of the whole. Then imagine if that one suffers today, one suffers tomorrow. Before you know it, if you look at the entire population as one, it's one individual or one group of ones that make a nation. So it shouldn't be so easy to sacrifice one. It's just like leaving 99 in search of one. One is as important as 99. That's simply what I'm trying to say. So let's not be quick to sacrifice one. Let's not overlook one person suffering and say it's not my suffering. Let's not be quick to condemn one tribe over the other and say we are, if it's for the Igbo nation, if it's for the Yoruba nation, if it's for the Hausa nation, I'm willing to kill my Igbo or Yoruba neighbor. For that is fascism. Okay, that is extreme sense of loyalty that is blinded without reason. So we should look more into patriotism, which means representing goodwill, which means representing the good interests of individuals, even foreigners who live amongst indigents or citizens. Will see the joy, will see the benefit of the country's patriotism. So guys, I'm hoping that I've been able to kind of put some air, to put some light into what you can do to help the movement. And that is, please get the idea behind the movement. If you think it is okay, not just think about your experience. Try and relate with the idea or the goal of the movement. As long as it's relatable, you will always have a support for it. You may not be as extreme as someone who has lost a loved one to the movement, or who has lost a loved one. The movement is trying to protect. But remember, protecting one is protecting the whole. Because if you can sacrifice one, then it's only a question of time before the entire members of the group are sacrificed. And if you feel that it doesn't concern you, that you are safe, everyone is entitled to their own personal security, then that inevitably weakens the whole. Once there's a weak link, the chain is destructible. So don't forget to be safe, again, like I said, in a crowd. Just as we are all marching and positive and hopeful, also understand that the dominant negative characteristics of the group is also alive, and you have to be cautious and careful and act circumspectly And thirdly is the accountability. How do you hold yourself personally accountable, and how does the group hold itself collectively accountable? And also looking forward with positivity, and how this can help the history of the revolution that helps the entire process long term. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy.